I used to think the internet could be a scary, nasty place, but it's nothing compared to the dark web. Rafi and I were juniors in college, sharing an apartment. This story happened in April, around final exams. We were in the dining hall with Blake, who was a computer science major and bore all the hallmarks of a nerd. Blake was going on about the perils of the dark web as he scooped up his raspberry ice cream. I think we got on the subject because some cyber gang got busted, and it was in the news that day. I wasn't very interested in the dark web, to be honest, and didn't know much about it. Rafi, on the other hand, wanted to know more about how it worked, what it was for, and what kind of people used it. To these questions, Blake merely shook his head and laughed. He refused to tell Rafi much, but he mentioned the browser bundle he'd have to install to access the dark web. Then, as if an afterthought, he strongly cautioned Rafi against ever visiting a so-called Red Room. A Red Room, he said, is a site on the dark web where people allegedly pay to see other people murdered. Some Red Rooms are even free. As curious as Rafi was, I don't think he believed a word of it. Not at the time. Neither did I. A week later, after dinner, I was writing my philosophy paper in my room when Rafi walked in, laptop in hand. He told me to close my computer and replaced it on my desk with his. On his screen, I saw the name of the browser Blake had mentioned to access the dark web. "Rafi, are you serious?" I said, crinkling my nose and raising my eyebrows. "It took some research, but I found out how to navigate it," he replied. "But why?" I asked, exasperated. "Just look here," Rafi said, sitting next to me. He copied and pasted a strange, long URL in the browser search bar. Suddenly, the screen turned to crimson. Rafi had pulled up a so-called Red Room on the dark web. 2 small boxes for a username and password lay in the center of the page, with the giant word "Enter" beneath them. Are we really doing this? I was talking more to myself than to Rafi. A few moments later, we were in the Red Room. It looked empty at first, but Rafi clicked on a small tab in the corner, and a list of attendees opened. Then a video box appeared on the screen and started playing. It showed a montage of hideous scenes, which I won't describe here. Suffice to say, there was plenty of death and mayhem. Clearly amused, Rafi clicked on one of the attendees who had the label "admin" next to their name. This attendee was called Zeus. Rafi said hi, and Zeus replied, "What do you want?" Well, that wasn't going to deter Rafi from having a good time. He called Zeus a loser for being an admin on such a site, and cracked a few immature jokes along the way, too. We chuckled and waited for Zeus to say something back, but nothing happened for a while. "This is getting lame," Rafi said, and he was about to close the window. "Wait," I shouted, pointing at the chat. We leaned in and couldn't believe what we saw. Zeus had typed out our apartment address, adding, "You don't even know who you're messing with." Before I could stop him, Rafi launched a torrent of insults at Zeus. Rafi was the kind of guy who didn't know when to back down, and this was tempting fate. "What the hell did you do that for?" I shouted, smacking Rafi's shoulder. In the next message, Zeus replied with Rafi's phone number, then a smiley face. I'd have guessed that was enough to shake Rafi off his tough guy pedestal. Without warning, Rafi's computer froze. The entire screen went blue. The so-called blue screen of death, which happens when some massive error corrupts all the files on your computer. That's what I thought hit Rafi's computer. A white cursor started typing in big bold letters. "Do not ever come here again." Then the laptop shut off. Surprisingly, Rafi's laptop turned on normally after that, and he didn't find any viruses when he ran the antivirus check. Another week passed, and I'd forgotten all about the Red Room. It was Thursday night, and Rafi and I were studying in our living room with our laptops. Crunch time for finals had arrived, and I was feeling the pressure. I was in the middle of reading a paper when a window opened on my screen. It was a picture. At first, I couldn't tell what it was because it was so dark, but taking a closer look, I realized it was a picture of our front door. I recoiled in shock, and just then, another window opened. This one was a photo of me leaving the apartment during the day. One more photo popped up. Someone took it through my bedroom window, and it showed me lying in bed, sleeping. I looked up at Rafi and noticed he was staring at his laptop in abject horror. His gaze rose and our eyes met. I instantly knew that Zeus had taken photos of him too. A series of bangs broke the silence, and our entire living room roared. We jumped out of our seats, our eyes fixed on the front door. The banging grew louder all the time, like some madman was trying to knock the door down. Then, just as fast as it started, it stopped. Slowly, delicately, Rafi inched his way toward the door. I reached out my arm to stop him, but he ignored my silent pleas. He looked through the peephole. "No one's out there," he whispered. "Rafi, don't open it," I begged. He unlocked the bolt and swung the door back. Nailed to the front of the door was a giant dead rat with a note attached reading, "Zeus." Why was this happening? The whole room started spinning. I soon found out why. Rafi told me he returned to that Red Room several times over that previous week, continually harassing Zeus. I was white hot over Rafi's complete disregard for my safety, seeing as I lived with him. Clearly, whoever was on the other end of the name Zeus was a force to be reckoned with. It terrified me to think that Zeus was so sick that he or she came to take photos of us. Hackers usually operate only online, so taking things to the next level like that gave me the creeps more than you could imagine. After that night, Rafi promised never to access the dark web again. I believed him. Still, I was happy the school year was over, so I could get out of that apartment. Senior year, I chose to live with some other friends instead, one of them being Blake. I never told Blake or anyone else what happened, mostly out of embarrassment. I doubt Rafi did either. You never know who you could be talking to online or what they're capable of. The dark web isn't a place I want to associate myself with, and fortunately, I never heard from Zeus again.